So here we go. Take 2, 3. So I'm Alexa Hamill. I am one of the associate directors for advising and programming. I'm also an alum of the college. I graduated in 2013. So I oversee Barnard Connect, Beyond Barnard's mentoring platform. It's designed exclusively for Barnard students and alumni. We'll be briefly going over that today, but if you don't have an account, I definitely encourage you to make one. We have close to 2,500 users now, so it's definitely something that we get really great feedback on. Alums really enjoy mentoring, students get great mentorship, so definitely take advantage of that. And I'm doing a networking presentation, not next week, but the following week for Career Skills Week, which will be great so you guys can get more information about networking if that's something that you're also considering. And then I oversee Mentors in Residence, which is one of the events that takes place pretty much every Friday. And it's for alums to meet with small groups of students, so between 1 to 3 students, to share information about their industry or graduate program, whatever they're doing. So it's a really great opportunity for you guys if you're just interested in career exploration, learning more about a field that you're considering or a graduate program, or if you're sure about what you want to do and you want to know more best practices about recruiting, they're all really great opportunities. So for today's session, we're going to be speaking about Career GPS sophomores. So this session is really geared towards, and each of these Career GPS sessions are geared towards topics and conversation points that coincide with what that particular class year is specifically thinking about. So before we get started on what those topics are, each of us as advisors just wanted to kind of bring this up before we get started on the nitty-gritty of the content, that this is a really stressful time. It's a really stressful time for everybody. I know when I meet with individual students and alums, you know, I'm definitely sensing a lot of stress, which is totally something that's to be expected and something that's very widespread. So, you know, as much as, especially as career advisors, we're really here to facilitate and encourage you to take things on and explore opportunities. The first thing that you want to do is to take care of yourself. So within, you know, these more stressful times, especially each class year, like I said, has their kind of own list of stressors that they're thinking about. I just encourage you to continue attending events, continue pursuing the opportunities that you're considering, but at the same time, being easy on yourself. If you realize that right now, really what you can focus on is being a student, and that alone, that's more than enough. So I just wanted to take the time to recognize that, because this is still a very unique time that we're in and that we're experiencing. And if you're somebody that is also feeling a certain way, you're definitely not alone. It's definitely something that's consistent with the students that I'm seeing, as well as the entire office. So I do just like to point that out, because it sometimes can feel, especially now, like you're kind of just in it on your own, but it's absolutely something that everyone's feeling. So be easy on yourself. Anytime that we can help with anything, you know, we're always here to help. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out. So just wanted to say that before we got started. So here for the agenda today. So first thing we're going to be talking about is just discovering your interests. How can you find opportunities that align with opportunities that you're considering, or things that you don't even know that's out there, but could be a really good fit. Then we'll talk about major connect and disconnect. So of course, for sophomores, whether you've already declared, you're thinking about declaring, this is definitely something that's specific for sophomores that we get feedback on as, you know, something that you're unsure about, or you have an idea, but making sense of it all. So we'll be talking about what it looks like and how it can or may not coincide with what you're looking to do long term. Things that you can be doing outside of your major. So of course, discovering your major and your academic interests absolutely can take place in the classroom, but what does it mean to discover your interest if it's outside of the classroom, outside of your major? So within that same kind of realm, talking about how to leverage the alumni network to discover your interests. And then, like I said, finally, we'll speak about how to use your transferable skills to really apply your experience to really any opportunity that you're considering. And then we'll have, depending on how much time we have, a little bit of practice at the end to talk that through. Okay, So discovering your interests. So definitely as a sophomore, as a first year, even junior and a senior, you're still figuring out what you're interested in, especially for yourself, for sophomores. A lot of times you may know what your academic interests are, but connecting that to possible career paths, or you're just assessing and figuring out what those academic interests are. So I try to say that I have like a main takeaway for my presentations because this can be a lot of content. So I like to say for the career GPS for sophomores, my main takeaway for you guys is that your major doesn't have to dictate what you're looking to do in the future, and you should choose your major purely based on your interests. So within your major, when you're thinking about what you want to declare, look within that department, look at who the professors are, what their specialty is, what type of research they do, look at the courses. So not only just the intro courses, but by the time you're a junior and a senior and you're taking more seminars, topic specific courses, definitely take a look at that because that will give you a good indication of what's to come. And you do want to make sure that you're genuinely interested in those courses. What's great about Barnard is you can take courses within your major and outside of your major, but again, going back to my key takeaway that I hope you leave with is that you don't need to know what your long-term goals are in order to decide what your major is. You should go with the major that aligns with your interests as they are now, because what could change and most likely what will change are your career interests. What you're interested in academically right now, at least in the short term, is not going to be changing. So as opposed to being like, oh, I want to be going into this industry, so I have to be an econ major, it absolutely is not the case. If you're actually genuinely interested in that major, go with it, but don't feel like, oh, I really wish I could be a sociology major, but because I want to do this, it makes more sense to be econ. Any of the majors can be applied to any of the fields that you're considering. So go with genuinely what you're interested in. They also, I know a lot of the departments will have department meetings where they talk more about the major. They usually have professors within that major speak about it. So definitely take advantage of looking at courses, speaking with professors, attending those meetings, and just gathering information to say, is this something that I genuinely am interested in this discipline? There's also a site called Own It. So Own It's a great site. You can put in a keyword for a particular industry, job function, and it'll give you kind of like a summary sheet of what it means to be in that position. So daily tasks, any skills that are required that you may need to know, even related occupations. So if you're putting something in and it's not exactly what you're considering, it'll link you to the pages for other related jobs. So that's another great kind of research online tool. And then Beyond Barnard also has events. So I brought up Mentors in Residence. We have Career Insights, which are industry or topic specific panels. We have the Opportunities Fair. So definitely take advantage of the built-in networking opportunities, as well as just events to learn more about different fields that we already have built in ready to go for you. Even if you have a slight inclination that you may like that, why not kind of attend an event, look at that, see what's out there, and just see if this sounds like something that you could be interested in. All of the events are on the event section on Handshake. So I usually suggest like on a weekly basis, take a look at that to see what is coming up. And then our resources, so we have a career exploration toolkit, which is great. My colleague Lindsay created that. So if you are interested in being added to that, definitely let me know. It gives you some questions to consider when you're thinking about your own interests, as well as some kind of self-reflecting exercises that you can do. Also have career assessments. So there's the MBTI and the Strong Interest Inventory. If you are interested in doing something like a career assessment, definitely feel free to reach out to us about that. In order to take those, you do have to make an initial meeting with an advisor to talk through if this actually makes sense, depending on where you're at. But those are formal assessments that you can definitely take. And then, like I said, we'll talk more about how to use LinkedIn and Barnard Connect. One of the great features that I think, especially for sophomores, like I said, because a lot of times you know maybe what your academic interests are, but figuring out how to translate that to possible careers. So the tool or the filter that really allows you to do that is on LinkedIn and Barnard Connect. You can search alumni by major. So if you're thinking to yourself, I'm really interested in this particular major, what does it mean if I want to be pursuing something, a career that's similar? So you can search for Barnard alumni that were psych majors and see what they're doing now to get some possible ideas. So let's just pause here. I want you to just take a look at so the first part, urban studies, psych, bio, econ, dance were the majors. And then this is actually what alums that were these majors, examples of what they're doing now. So take a quick run through and look at that. So before we get into this, the other thing is just wait for Q&A until at the end in case I end up going over your questions, but I'll go over everything then too, because I saw in the chat starting. So this is just to say, this is typically what you could think of as people that had this major, what they're doing now. Like I said, this is actually taken from LinkedIn. These are people that were this major and what they're actually doing now. So in the next slide, these are going to be the exact same majors, different alums, but we're within that major group and what they're doing. So again, this is just to show exactly what I mentioned before. These are the exact same majors from the same school, and this is what they're doing now. So like I said, you can really make whatever major work for you because you can take other opportunities outside of your major. Skills that you're learning within your major can be applicable. And then we're also going to talk about things that, let's say you are going to be an urban studies major, you realize actually that you want to be doing more lab work. How can you do things outside of the classroom that you could then leverage to show, you're taking these courses, but then you're also doing these things outside of the classroom to really show how that can be relevant for whatever you're looking to be doing in the future. But hopefully that quick exercise just shows that you can make whatever major you ultimately choose work for whatever you decide. Right now, your interests are what they are, but your career goals will most likely be changing and evolving. So what you decide now will most likely not be exactly aligned anyway, because your interests will be evolving for careers. So these are the things that you can be doing outside of your major. So academics. So first off, you're at a liberal arts college. As you can see, all of the majors here are meant to be really general and broad. And a lot of the curriculum that you're taking is really across a variety of disciplines, which is amazing because then it's just that much more flexible and adaptable. You have that many more skills that you can work with to apply. So it's not even like the major that you choose is necessarily for any of them going to perfectly align, which is a good thing because, like I said, then you have a really wide repertoire of knowledge and skills, and it could be really applied to whatever you're interested in going for. Another thing that you can do is, so let's say you're a computer science major and you're going for something maybe in media. Maybe that particular employer doesn't necessarily know that you're taking courses just outside of computer science that could be really relevant. So another thing that you can do is have on your resume underneath your major selected coursework. And you can include some of those courses that, again, maybe they don't typically think a computer science major is taking, but actually is really relevant to what the job is going to be looking for. Like I said, definitely take advantage of the different mentoring programs that we have where you can learn more, network, gain information. You can learn from alums that were in similar majors, different majors, how did they leverage their experience? And then of course you can do things like internships, on-campus jobs, volunteer opportunities, other ways to kind of discover what careers you could be considering, and then getting involved in campus. There are tons of organizations, pre-professional, non-pre-professional, that can also allow you to kind of learn from your peers, an additional networking group that you can take advantage of. So now let's talk about specifically how to leverage the alumni network to discover your interests and learn more about what's out there. So informational interviews. So informational interviews are really set up, not necessarily an interview in the sense of you applied for something and they're requesting you to come in to assess if you're a good fit, but informational interviews are for the purposes of yourself to learn more about something from somebody else. So this is your opportunity to really gather this information, gain this insight that you can learn from somebody that just knows more about something than maybe what you know at this point. There's kind of only so much research you can kind of do on your own without getting those insights that allow you to kind of make those decisions once you're kind of maybe down to a few options that allow you to get those insights that you don't get from working there day to day, but you can get from somebody that is. And that can make a huge difference in terms of what decisions you ultimately make. So I have an example of an informational interview message to send out, but generally best practices for what to include would just be a brief intro about yourself with a little bit of a background, something specific about the alum's profile that caught your attention, what they're doing, what their major was, targeted questions related to your development. So what are some of the areas that you want to learn more about from that alum? And then finally asking about availability. I would say now in person is still a little bit tricky, but at least speaking over the phone or over video so you can actually have that conversation. This point is really important because by just speaking over email, it's just natural that they'll have more of an investment by actually hearing your voice and speaking to you. So eventually if it's for the purposes of recruiting, you're developing that rapport. But then also there could be questions that maybe you're not even asking, but could be important information for you to know. So for example, maybe there's a job function that's out there that you don't necessarily even know to ask about, but after speaking with them and having a conversation, they can maybe suggest for you based on what they know and the information that they know about the industry that at this point, maybe you're not even thinking about, but could really align with your goals. And then the final point with this is just be prepared with questions when you meet or speak with the alumna, because you're reaching out to them, you're leading at least initially that conversation. So make sure that you're asking questions that are to show you're prepared, but also to get the information that you feel like is maybe lacking just from doing that research on your own. So things that are really specific for them that can really help you with making decisions and figuring out what's the best next steps for you. So I'm just going to take a moment here. I'll let you read through this example request and then we'll go over it. So here, like I said, really brief to the point, but addresses each of these points specifically that I mentioned. So another thing to note is on Barnard Connect, we do also have like one-page guides on common networking and mentoring questions. So everything from the initial outreach to questions and topics to discuss, following up, things like that. So definitely feel free to take a look at that to reference as you're going through the networking process as well. So now let's talk about connecting the disconnect using transferable skills. So like I said, it could be, if it happens to be that your goals really align with your major, amazing. But I think what stresses students out is not knowing what they want to do and then feeling like, oh, I can't make that decision on what I want to major in, or ultimately choosing a major and then maybe your career goals change and it doesn't necessarily align. So this is just to show what are some of those transferable skills that you can gain from a variety of different opportunities that you can apply to a whole host of industries. So these are valued skills kind of regardless of the industry, regardless of the grad program, that are really, really valued and transferable. And so I'm sure, if you really think about it, you take the time, I'm sure within experiences that you have, whether it be on campus, volunteering, off campus, that you can say that these are times that you've used these skills. And then these are some common on-campus jobs or things that students are involved in, and some of the skills that you're gaining from being in these opportunities. So like, for example, student government, these are all things that are really important that sometimes I think students don't even recognize that they're doing, that is so transferable. So things like planning events, but then having a budget that you have to manage, or leading opportunities for other peers of yourselves to learn more about something that you're training or teaching them. For tutoring, time management and working and teaching, but just even having kind of that client mentality of you serving a client who's a student. So definitely thinking kind of outside of the box in terms of what you can actually do and how many of these skills you're incorporating in positions that you may not even realize that you're actually doing. So definitely taking the time with that. And then being really strategic with these verbs that you're using on your resumes when you are trying to tailor your documents to the careers that you're considering. And then here are some common verbs depending on the industry. So again, if you're interested in PR, as a tutor, you have communication. You're communicating with either the professor or the parent of the child that you're tutoring with the person you're tutoring themselves. Within student government, you're communicating with different organizations on campus. When you're a peer career advisor, you're communicating with other advisors in the office and with other students. So again, there's so many ways that you can incorporate your experience to fit in with so many variety of industries. So like I said, I'm just going to pause here. So there is currently a position or an internship that's actually live on Handshake. So I'm just going to put it in the chat. So what I'm going to ask that you guys do is just take a look at this position, this internship. And what I'm going to ask that you do is look through it and then just write down a bullet, 2, 3, however many you want, based on an actual experience that you have that would be relevant for this position. And it could be something formal like a bullet you would put on a resume. It could just be a brief note to show, this is an example of a way that I've used this skill within this experience. So anything that you have that can support any of the skills or responsibilities that they're requesting. So give everybody about 10 minutes to kind of go through this. So does anyone want to share anything that they think, like I said, is relevant, whether it be a bullet they would put on a resume or just discussing something that they think is applicable that you can leverage for the purpose of this opportunity? And I can give an example to kick it off. That's easier. So let's say I'm a peer career advisor, which is a student that works in this office. So something that I would think would be relevant for this would be relevant to supporting employees. So in the same way that I am supporting my peers with processes related to job applications would be something that I can use to support employees, even though being an onboarding situation, that advising is something that's really transferable and relevant. So Nicole mentioned experience working on a team. Amazing. I'm sure every person here can think of one time they worked on a team, in an internship, in a club, on a project, anything like that. Let's get 2 more responses. You can put in the chat, say it out loud.
Okay, I can go. Well, I worked as a camp counselor, and so I had to deal with like little kids like being annoying to each other all the time.
Yes.
And part of HR is like conflict management and resolution. So I could like take that experience and apply it.
That's such a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times with babysitting, camp counseling, I always have advisees that are like, well, it's not professional experience. Like the things that you can learn from being a camp counselor, from managing kids, from tutoring, babysitting, you're working with professionals, you're working with the parents, you're managing a large group of people, conflict, things like that. That's such a good point. Anything else? So that's just, again, looking at this job description, again, looking at these principal responsibilities, looking at the qualifications. If I just took out HR from this, I'm sure, like I said, if not all of them, close to all of them, you could probably support. So a point of contact to assist employees with inquiries. Even if you were working in an administrative role, that's a huge part of being in admin in any office. Supporting employees, maintaining accuracy, assisting partners. So when were you supporting somebody at a more senior level? Administrative support, overseeing projects. I mean, these are all things that you can support. And so this is just to say, one, if your major isn't necessarily connected, well, first, we don't necessarily even have an HR major, but even if you're not necessarily, in a major that perfectly aligns with something that somebody in HR can do, there are so many ways that you can do things outside of your major as well to show that you have those relevant skills and responsibilities. Another thing to note is you don't need to have experience in that field to be eligible to apply, especially for something like an internship. Employers have completely different expectations from students than they would from somebody that's not currently a student. So that's something else to note is, thinking more broadly about times that you just use that skill is going to allow the opportunity for you to feel comfortable and not super stressed about applying for those things. If you can see where within the experiences you've actually already used that skill. Again, it's not about doing it in the context of HR. It's about just having that skill and that foundational experience. And they can always train you to do it in the way that's according to however they want to do it. But you're bringing a foundational skill that they can at least work with and kind of leverage. So let me just share this back. Okay, so here's the next step that I'm going to recommend. So have your resume and or cover letter reviewed by a peer career advisor. So I know our schedules are crazy busy right now, but especially for first drafts of documents, definitely take advantage of working with the PCA. Those are our students who are available to really work with you on anything a career advisor would work with you on. Usually they're available for drop-ins, but just for crowd control at this time, we are still requesting that students create an appointment through Handshake. You can do that really easily just by choosing PC as the appointment type, and then resume, cover letter review, or whatever else you want to talk about. And like I said, they have a lot more availability as much as this week if that's something that you're interested in. If you're still unsure of your interest, definitely let me know if you're interested in being added to that toolkit, or talk with an advisor about career assessments to kind of give you that jump start in terms of just starting to get your thoughts flowing about what are some things that you can consider. And if you have an idea about what your interests are, consider talking about an internship search strategy. So create a Barnard Connect LinkedIn account if you guys don't already have it, to start networking and see how alumni that were in a major that you're considering, what they're doing now, to kind of get an idea about how to translate academics into possible career paths and see if that aligns with your goals. And then taking a look at internships and opportunities we have on Handshake. For on-campus jobs, that is all going to be on Barnard Works. And then other things that we have that are popular, especially for students interested in internships. We have the internship grant program, which provides funding for unpaid internships. We have things like the Summer Research Institute. So these are all things that are available readily on Handshake that I definitely encourage you to take a look at and definitely take advantage of. And then other things to keep in mind down the line, should you be applying for opportunities and you want to schedule a mock interview for that, definitely feel free to do that. It's really, really helpful, especially even making those minor tweaks that usually happen when you do a mock interview can really help with possibly getting that offer. So again, before I open it up to Q&A, my main takeaway, and hopefully what you're gaining from this, is that you don't need to have a major that aligns with your goals. If it happens to work out that way, great. But regardless of what you're going to be looking to do, you can make any major work for whatever you're looking to pursue. So kind of take that stress off of yourself of, I need to know what I want to do to declare my major, and purely just go with what your interests are. You can see there are so many other ways of gaining experience, learning more about interest just outside of the classroom. So just go with, this is the major because I would enjoy taking these classes the most, working with these professors. And that's really how I would direct you to go with whatever decision you're going to be making. So this is my email. This is beyond Barnard's email. Anything that comes up, of course, always feel free to schedule on Handshake, and then you can feel free to email me with any questions, concerns. So I'm going to stop sharing now so I can answer some questions. So I know Nicole mentioned advisor meetings you can do in person or virtual. You can choose by the appointment medium when you're scheduling, which one you prefer. Let's say you do in person and you're not feeling well, or you just want to switch to virtual, you can always switch mediums at any time as well. Other questions, feel free to put in the chat. You can take yourself off mute and ask it live. No problem. Sure. So I'm not seeing any questions. So hopefully this provided some stress relief for you, some things to think about that maybe you haven't considered. But anything you want to follow up with me about, with any of the advisors about, I definitely encourage you to do so. Again, take care of yourselves. This is a really stressful time for everybody. So definitely make sure that you are taking care. Sorry, just before. So someone wrote that their main concern is that Barnard doesn't offer a business major, and I feel like I'm missing out on gaining experience I should be receiving during my time as an undergrad. So yeah, so Barnard doesn't offer a business major, but all of the ways that I expressed before that you can do outside of your major to gain experience related to what somebody maybe as a business major could be doing is relevant. And beyond that, things that you can actually do in business, what better way of doing it than actually in a professional setting? So if it's, okay, somebody's coming from a business major, but somebody that's worked in a professional environment that actually has professional skills that I can leverage, it's a really great thing that's even more transferable by the things that I mentioned that you could be doing outside of it. So that's, again, just to say that you don't have to have a major that exactly aligns, and being at Barnard, you most likely won't be able to anyway, which is a good thing because it kind of has you being able to take a bunch of things and opportunities that you wouldn't necessarily maybe get exposure to or experience in unless you were currently having the opportunity to learn these skills and take on these tasks that come from a broad range of disciplines. So I encourage you, if you're looking at opportunities, say to yourself within this job description, how am I already learning about this in other classes, and or how can I gain these skills and experience through things outside of the classroom? Another thing is, because with that, so sometimes internship descriptions will say like business major preferred or whatever major preferred. Most of the times we don't even offer that major here, which again isn't a problem, but don't let that deter you. I personally have never seen where it says required a certain major unless it's extremely technical. So again, it's just to say that it's not necessary for you to be in a certain major to be qualified to take on a certain experience. So again, any follow-up questions you guys have, you have my email, definitely feel free to schedule something. Thank you guys for being here, and most importantly, take care of yourselves, and we're here to help in any way that we can. So thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of the week, and thanks for bearing in mind my technical issues. Have a good one, guys. Thanks, bye.